Well, um, we know how the U.S. feels about China when it comes to any, like, let's say Russia. We know that the U.S. has told China, don't be a supporter of the special military operation, which they don't use that terminology. Um, if what you say is correct, are we going to get a reaction from the U.S. when it comes to France and perhaps the wider EU, since von der Leyen is on this trip, given
Now listen carefully to what this man is going to say. All right? Mainstream media is not speaking about this. I'm going to say. All right? They're not speaking about this at all. Mainstream media are not speaking about this because they won't allow this news to be, because they know if this news comes forward, they're going to have to go to war directly with Russia. Right? And they're not ready for that, NATO and its allies. So this has been reported on certain news channels, certain newspapers. In Israel, it's been reported on the news channels in Israel. In India it has. In Iran, most of these countries in the Middle East and Asia, they've reported this incident as factual, took place. But the Western mainstream news media are keeping silence on this, because if they come forward with this, they have to go to war directly against Russia. So listen carefully to what they say here. The reporter, what he says here. Listen to what the reporter says. I'm going to play two different news clips. Right, this is Press TV, and listen to what the man says here. The reporter, his name is Gilbert Doctorow. Listen to what he says, and then you're going to hear the other news reporter speak on the same incident that the mainstream media in the West have been hiding from everyone. This happened a few weeks ago, just so you know. All right.
the depth of the business dealings, which I'm sooner or later it's got to come out. You know how much business they're going to do with China.
Well, I don't know that it'll come out. The news is being manipulated so far very skillfully and successfully by Washington to hide embarrassing facts. 2 weeks ago, the Russians, with a Kinzhal missile, hypersonic, destroyed an underground bunker near Lvov. They killed 200 NATO generals, including at least 20 or 30 high-ranking American officers. Have you read about that in the news? Of course you haven't. So it is with any deals that the French businessmen, including Airbus, who are going to sign some very big contracts, that's in the cards. This will not be in your news, maybe in Press TV news, but not in Euronews, not on the BBC. These deals, which normally, in good times, would be celebrated and would be front page business news, are going to be kept quiet.
I'm sorry, I was trying to Google what you said was the news, which I didn't hear about. What is that news before I let you go?
That's after the.
You hear the reporter. He said, "I'm sorry, I was trying to Google the news that you just told me about." He said he's never heard about this. He said not even he's heard about this, right? And in Iran, he said, "I'm sorry, I just tried to Google that news that you just spoke on, which was this strike on the NATO bunker 2 weeks ago, right? This strike, the actual strike happened a couple of weeks ago." So the reporter here says, "I'm sorry, but I'm trying to Google this news that you've just broke to me here." He says, "What is this news?" Listen to him again. Even he was shocked to hear. Listen to the reporter. Listen to the TV host say to the reporter.
I'm sorry, I was trying to Google what you said was the news, which I didn't hear about. What is that news before I let you go?
That's after the Ukrainians staged a sabotage mission in Bryansk Oblast, part of the Russian Federation, in which several people were killed. The Russians staged a revenge attack with using, for the first time, 6 of their hypersonic missiles, which are called Kinzhal. One of those struck near Lvov, or Lviv, that is the western capital of Ukraine. And this conventionally armed missile, because of the laws of physics, that is taking mass and velocity, give you enormous impact which enabled that rocket to descend and destroy a deeply built concrete bunker where 300 top Western and Ukrainian officers have been managing the communications on behalf of NATO in Ukraine. The Russians, again, yesterday announced very discreetly that 200 of those people killed were generals and high NATO officers. Did you read about that in the New York Times? No, you didn't.
All right, very well.
If it were in the New York Times, it would lead to enormous uproar in the States and would take us towards escalation of nuclear exchange.
Sure.
The Americans don't want that. The Russians don't want that.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to definitely follow through with that. Gilbert Doctorow, independent international affairs analyst. Don DeBar, thank you. Activist.
He was shook. This reporter was shook, right? When he heard that, he said he never heard that news. He said, "Can I Google it?" Now listen to this other reporter now. Now it's starting to drip onto the news, but it's not reached the Western media. I'm not reporting it, but in the East, they're starting to report this now. Listen to this reporter on WE ON News channel, which is a East Indian news channel.
And commentator from Austin, New York. With that, we come to an end for this edition of the News Review. Thanks for tuning in.
Russia launched a devastating missile attack on Ukraine on Thursday, and the weapon of choice were Kinjal missiles, which are unstoppable by ground defenses and travel at speeds several times faster than the speed of sound. This special report gives a better understanding on what these hypersonic missiles are and how they operate.
After failing to break through Ukrainian defenses and making any major gains, Moscow seems to have changed its tactics on the battleground. Russia is now using high-precision missile attacks on Ukraine, and the effect is devastating. This is the moment when 3 Russian rockets were launched against Ukraine from Russia's Belgorod.
So he's speaking on the direct incident where these 300, they said, some said 3, they said between 300 and 400 NATO military soldiers, generals, and high-ranking officials died in an underground bunker that was something like 200-300 feet underground, and it penetrated the bunker and it killed literally everyone in the bunker. They reckon there was over 500 casualties. British soldiers, American soldiers, Polish soldiers, high-ranking generals and senior officers. So now this reporter for WE ON News is speaking directly on that, what took place, and what you heard the other reporter speak about, what he was talking on Press TV. This is the instant that they're speaking on again. Now it's starting to come onto the media, but it's not reached the Western mainstream media yet. They're not talking about this yet, but listen to what he says.
The mass strikes on targets far from the front were the first such wave since mid-February, shattering the longest calm since Moscow began an air campaign against Ukraine's civil infrastructure 5 months ago. Ukraine vows to resist the Russians.
No matter how treacherous Russia's actions are, our state and people will not be in chains, neither missiles nor...
That's why Zelensky looks so downtrodden in his face, beaten, because it killed so many high-ranking Ukrainian officials, right, and top U.S. military. But they're not telling you. They're not. The Western media's not telling you what happened today. They had a serious blow. That's why his face looks so downtrodden there. Can you see in his face and his eyes? He looks defeated. But listen to what the report says.
Russian atrocities will help them.
Russia says that the attack was a successful retaliation strike on Ukraine in response to a recent incursion in Russia's Bryansk region.
The goal of the strike has been achieved. All the targets have been hit.
The attacks triggered a wave of power cuts, including one at Europe's biggest nuclear power plant. And what's different this time was the use of hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. Kinzel, which means dagger in Russian, with a range of 1500 to 2000 kilometers while carrying a payload of 460 kilograms. It can reach speeds of up to Mach 10, which is 12,350 kilometers per hour. Russia used 6 of these weapons on Thursday, which are air-launched ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear or conventional warheads. Hypersonic missiles reach into the uppermost regions of the Earth's atmosphere before arcing back towards the Earth for finer maneuvers. But what makes these missiles so dangerous is its unmatched speed, rendering traditional air defense systems useless. Essentially, by the time a missile flying at speeds more than 1,000 kilometers per hour is detected by ground-based radars, they are already nearly at their target. In a battlefield, it's always advantageous to have a trump card up your sleeve, and Russia is not alone to have such hypersonic weapons. United States, Australia, United Kingdom, China and India are all in a race to develop and deploy hypersonic missiles. While the West was speculating that Moscow might be running out of ammunition after a year-long war, Thursday's barrage of missiles show that might not be true. Bureau report, WION, world is...
As you can see, while the West was speculating that Russia would run out of missiles, quite clearly that's not true. So that's what they did 2 weeks ago. And it's drip, drip, drip coming through the media now, but it's not coming through to the Western mainstream media. It's not coming through on ESA's. BBC News is not speaking about it. Channel 4 News is not speaking about it. ITV News is not speaking about it. NBC News, CBC News, CNN News, Fox News. None of them are. This is why I reckon why they got rid of what's his name, Tucker Carlson, right, from Fox News, because he probably was gonna do a bit on this. He probably would have done all his research, and he would have done looking to probably do a piece on this incident. And it makes you wonder. You know what I'm saying? Why they got rid of him the other day, boy, just like that, bang. Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Because he probably was the only kind of mainstream media that was kind of speaking onto the things that was really happening in Ukraine. You know, they were speaking about the documents that were destroyed. You know, that when the US tried to lie about the leaked documents and say, oh, they were fake and all that, and Fox News was saying, no, it was only Tucker Carlson that was saying, no, they're real, they're definitely real, they're genuine. So they know what they're talking about, and they had to admit they were real. But yeah, they don't want to talk about this. So things are truly, truly hotting up. And it's like the guy said, if it's like the reporter said, if America and Great Britain, if NATO come publicly and have to admit to this, they're over 300 NATO personnel being killed, top generals and senior officials of NATO being killed in that underground, because remember, it was a command center. It was a command center for NATO. So if they had to admit that, that would mean they would have to admit that they are directly involved in the war, which turns it up a complete different notch. And like the reporter said, it could, we know what it's going to lead to, but he said, look, he said, if they admit it, it will lead to a nuclear exchange, he said. But the Lord is not ready for the nuclear exchange yet. That's the thing. For all what that reporter said, and he's right, if they admit this publicly, the American government, the British government, it could lead to a nuclear exchange. And we know that all of these actions that we are seeing is going to lead to a nuclear exchange. So, you know, people think things have cooled down in the war because we've seen other things going on, you know, around the world. They see a civil war break out in Sudan. So they think, oh, things are cooled off in Ukraine and Russia, because it's not the first thing you hear on the news now. The first thing you hear on the news, we're hearing about the war in Sudan between the RSPF, whatever they call themselves, and the Sudanese army. There's a civil war breaking out in the Sudan. So that's the first thing you're hearing on the news now. But these are all Bible prophecies. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. All right, the Bible tells us that. So What we see happening here, what happened here in Ukraine, is a significant thing. But they can't. They can't come, because they've got two choices. If they come forward and admit this, the first choice is that they go directly to war with Russia, NATO and its allies, and they just send their tanks and their planes into Ukraine to fight the war against the Russians and their soldiers, right? Or they withdraw their support from Ukraine and say, look, we've had enough. But like I said, it's not, the Lord is not ready yet. The Lord is not ready. Let me just get a couple of scriptures, boy. But it was beautiful to hear that. The drums of war. So we know Ezekiel 38, as we always say, we're going to keep going back there, because it's all roads lead back to Ezekiel 38, as we continue to say. You know, you may get tired of us telling you this, but all roads lead back to Ezekiel 38. All roads lead to Joel chapter 3. All roads lead to Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. All roads will lead to Revelation 16 and 16. But we know Revelations 13 and 16 has to be in play on a global scale before these boys make nuclear exchange between each other. Before they make a nuclear exchange between each other. Revelations 13 and 16 has to be in place. But the drums of war are beating. So the prophecy about Gog and the future invasion of Israel, it's all there. It's all happening. Israel, like I said, it's like people kind of thinking, well, the war is happening in Ukraine. What's going down in Israel? Israel is quietly waging a war against Iran. Iran and Israel are waging a proxy war down there in the Middle East. But that's not on your mainstream, because the war that they're most concerned about is the one in Ukraine. So things are popping off between Israel and Iran, but it's been done covertly between the two. And it's like everything, you know, you keep tapping each other until someone does something to the other that causes it to completely blow up. So the Lord is gonna choose his time. This is his film. This is his movie. This is his prophecies, exactly when he wants it to blow up in the Middle East. When he wants things to blow up between Israel and Iran in the Middle East, that's going to draw all of the nations to fight each other. Even in that war in Sudan. All right, there's a war in Sudan right now, right? Between the Sudanese military and RSPF people, right? So let me tell you that one side, the Sudanese military, is backed by, I believe, if I'm getting this right, the Sudanese military is backed by the West, while the RSPF is backed by Russia and China in that war. I believe I've got it right. The Sudanese, I believe that's the way it's either the RSPF, the Sudanese people, Sudan, let me just quickly bring it up here, Sudan war sides. I believe I've got it right. That's how it is. Hold on. Let me just see if it shows me here. I believe that's how the two sides are split. This isn't full-blown war, strapped it, but. So you got the RSF, which is the Rapid Support Forces, which is the paramilitary group under the command of Mohammed Hemedi Hamdan Daglo, are fighting pitch battles, right, with the Sudanese army, which is General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Those are the two sides. So you've got the Sudanese army that are fighting against the Rapid Support Forces, which is the paramilitary group. Now, I'm trying to think if it will show me here who backed who. Because one side is backed by the Russians, military-wise, and the other side is backed by NATO and its European members. All right? I'm just going to show me here. Probably not. Oh, there's no dramas. But that's how that's going on. So even that war is being backed by the two warring sides in, same like you see in Ukraine, right? The same like you see between Israel and Iran. The Iranians are backed by the Russians and the Chinese. The Israelis are backed by NATO and American and all of their allies, these Western allies. So something is going to click that's going to lead them all down to this place here. So we'll just read a few scriptures before we shut this down. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Remember the word chief prince, Rosh Shah, which goes back to Russia. If we go to the word chief, all right, we do this for edification, right? The chief prince, Rosh. And if we look for the word Rosh, I think it's in Genesis 46, yep. If we look at the word Rosh, we go back to it here, the word Rosh. Which means head, which also, and we always keep, I like to keep showing you this, boy. It shows here in Ezekiel 38.2, which is what we're reading. We're reading Ezekiel 38 verse 2. This is where we're reading. Ezekiel 38 and 2. The chief prince, the land of Gog and Magog. Chief, the word chief goes back to the word, the Hebrew word Rosh, and it's showing you here the word Rosh of a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech, of a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech. Right? As you can see here, this is what it's referring to. Undoubtedly, the Russians. You can't say this enough. When we tell you that word chief prince is talking about the Russians, who are mentioned by the Byzantine writers of the 10th century under the name dwelling to the north of Taurus. Right? You can't say this enough. This is what he's talking about. The word chief prince is talking about the Russians of Meshech and Tubal, the land in the land of Gog and Magog. It's the Russians. Prophesies against him. The Lord is not for Russia, he's against Russia, but he's going to use Russia to go to war against America and its allies. And say, thus says the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. So he's not for him, he's against Russia, but he's going to use Russia. Because ultimately the Russians are Edomites as well. Just like the NATO and their allies. They are predominantly made up of pure Edomite countries. And I will turn thee back, and I will put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth all thine army, horses, horsemen, all of thine army, horses, horsemen, all of their armored vehicles, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, body armor, armored vehicles and body armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. And then he's going to gather his allies, Persia, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet, their armies, Gomer, and all of the bands of the house of Togarmah. Gomer, what we know today as modern Turkey, and all the bands, the house of Togarmah, the ex-Soviet Union states, the Kyrgyzstans, the Uzbekistans, of the North Quarters, all of them from the North Quarters, and all of these bands and many people with thee, be thou prepared. So everything we see happening is these nations, the Russians, are preparing themselves. You got to think, the Lord has prepared these nations by giving them a war to fight before the war of Armageddon. So check this out. The Ethiopians just finished a war with the Tigrayan people in Ethiopia, right? Libya just finished a civil war, but there's still factions fighting in Libya. Persia, the Iranians, right? They was in a war with the Iraqis, and then they was in a war with, in a proxy war with, fighting alongside the Syrians against the rebels, those, you know, those Islamic rebel groups that the Americans were backing to try to take down, what's his name? Bassad in Syria, the Syrian prime minister. The Iranians were fighting alongside the Syrians. So the Lord is getting them all battle hardened. Turkey were fighting in Syria as well. But Turkey was fighting along the side of the rebels. Turkey are also fighting a proxy war against the Kurdish, the PKK army. And all of the House of Togarmah. These are the ex-Soviet Union states. So all of these nations, the Lord is just getting them battle hardened as if they're going through a rehearsal training before they come to this place here. Joel chapter 3. Because ultimately, all of what we see is going to lead them down to here. When the Lord says, I will gather, the nations will be judged. I will gather all nations. I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh, Yahweh's judgment, Yahweh judgment. That's what the word Jehoshaphat means. I will bring them down into valley of Jehoshaphat. Yahweh Yahweh has judged. Okay, this is where he's going to judge all the nations. And I will plead with them there for my people. Who are the Lord's people? The children of Israel, the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, the descendants of the Native American Indian tribes of North, South America and Canada, and the Israelite Gentiles, foreigners that are scattered and mixed amongst the other nations and will look like the other nations, but they go back to the 12 tribes of Israel. Only the elect of all of these people that I mentioned is the Lord going to plead for. And he says, I will plead there for my people. He's not going to be pleading for all of Israel, just for the elect. And for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land. So why is the Lord only interested in pleading for his people, Israel, the elect who is scattered amongst the nations? Because Isaiah 45 just makes it simple for you. Instead of me talking, let's get to Isaiah 45. Let the Most High speak. Isaiah 45. Where's it, Isaiah? Hold on. Isaiah 45 and 17. But Israel shall be saved in Yahweh with what? With an everlasting salvation. Everlasting. It's always been about Israel. You shall not be ashamed, nor a confounded world without end. So when the Lord says to John to Apostle John, that the Lord sent his only begotten Son, that whoever shall believe in him shall be saved. So when we speak on this, John 3 and 16, about the deliverance, for the Most High so loved the world, the cosmos, the world. What world is he talking about? This world here, the world of Israel, the 12 tribes. Ye, Israel, shall be saved in the Lord Yahweh with an everlasting salvation. Everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed, nor confounded world without end. Israel is referred to as a confounded world without end. John 3:16. For the Most High so loved the world. That world is the world of Israel. That's not talking about all the nations. That he gave his only begotten Son, Yahushua, that whosoever believeth in him. That's why he's only concerned about the elect, because only the elect are going to believe this. Going to believe what we're prophesying about the war of Armageddon, the microchip, the mark of the beast, the salvation of the elect, who the Gentiles truly are. That whosoever shall believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For the Most High sent not his son his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. What world is that? That's the world of Israel, but only the elect. That the world in him might be saved. Who did the Lord say is coming to save? Who's got an everlasting salvation? But Israel shall be saved in Yahweh, the Lord Yahweh, with an everlasting salvation. You shall not be ashamed, nor confounded world without end. So, Joel chapter 3, the Lord says here, and I will plead with them, the nations, for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land, and they have cast lots for my people, slavery, auction blocks, and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. That's what they did, right? So if we go to Isaiah, just to give you a bit more context about who this salvation is for, when this war kicks off, who is the Lord coming for? Give you a little bit more context, right? Isaiah 40. I'm just going where the Spirit's taking me. It says here, all nations before him are as nothing. You understand? All these other nations are considered as nothing. And they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. All nations before the Most High are considered as nothing. The Most High is concerned about the other nations. He's going to judge them. He's going to confound them. He's going to rule over them alongside the children of Israel. But, like I said, this war has to take place first. So if we go to Isaiah 34, God's wrath against the nations. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that there is in the world, and all the things that come forth of it. Now, this word is talking about the whole world. And all things that come forth of it. For the indignation, the righteous anger of the Most High, Yahweh, is upon all nations, and his fury is upon all their armies. He has what? He has utterly destroyed them. He has delivered them to the slaughter. His fury is upon all of the armies. What armies are those? Those are the armies that we just read here in Joel chapter 3. The Lord says, I will gather all nations. I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Yahweh, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land. Just so you understand what's going on here. We grab this precept from GMS Shalom. GMS in his likeness, Shalom Ark. It says, my bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me. I cannot hold my peace, because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. And this is what we are sounding. We are sounding the trumpet for the alarm of war. Back to, so when he says here, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou what? And be thou a guard unto them. Unto who? Unto the children of Israel. Be thou a guard, Salaki, be thou a guard unto the coalition of nations. Because I was speaking about Israel, the elect, so much, it just first rang into my mind. He's been a guard unto the nations that he's going to draw into the war, that he's going to bring as his confederates, as his alliances into the war. The Iranians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, the Turks, the ex-Soviet Union states, the Chinese will be on their side. The North Koreans will be on their side. Russia's going to be a guard unto them. Russia's got the biggest nuclear arsenal out there. And after many days thou shalt be visited. So we are in those days. These are the days that the Most High is visiting Russia and these nations to get them battle hardened for this war. In the latter years, these are those latter years, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and it's gathered out of many people. He's going to come against America. He's also going to come against Israel, because America is going to come to defend Israel. But that's why it says against the mountains of Israel. So he's going to come against the land that is brought back from the sword, that is gathered out of many people, the United States of America, against the mountains of Israel, against Israel, because America is going to come to defend Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm soldiers, the armies. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. So that's what we see preparing there. And the Lord is only concerned about his elect. So when you go back to Isaiah 34, these armies that the Lord is gathering together, the Lord is doing it in his fury, because he wants them to kill each other first before he comes to take them out. Yahweh Shai, the angels, he said he will not meet thee as a man, right? He has utterly destroyed them. He has delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. All right? There's not talking the actual mountains. This is symbolic, parabolic language. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. This is when they're going to make a nuclear exchange. In the midst of this is when Yahweh Shai and the angels are going to turn up to deliver the elect. And all their hosts shall fall down. All their hosts shall fall down. So all of their planes that they got in the sky, they're going to come to the ground. As the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from a fig tree. For what? For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Nuclear missiles. Those are the Most High's sword. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, the United States of America. Idumea is the Greek word for Edom. And upon the people of my curse to judgment. So who are the people of the Lord's curse? Simple. Malachi chapter 1 verse 4. And we'll just finish it here probably. It says, whereas Edom says, who is Edom? Edom is talking about Babylon, America. This is symbolic language for America. The Edomites are what we know today as your so-called Caucasian, European, so-called white man. The descendants of Esau. Whereas Edom says, America says, we are impoverished, but we will return and build a desolate places, which is what they did. Thus says the Lord of hosts, they shall build, which they have, their cities all across America. You think of all of their cities and their skyscrapers, they've built, they've done it. They came literally to a desolate land that had none of these major mega cities that you see today, and they built. But I will throw down, that's America's end. And they shall call them, call who? America and these Edomites, Edom, because Edom was another name given to Esau, which just means red. Because when they get hot, tired, ill, flustered, when they're born, they're different shades of red, right? Their blood shows through their unmelanated skin. It says, they shall build, but I shall throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness. These Edomites are considered the border of wickedness. Why? And the people, the Edomites now he's speaking directly to, and the people against whom the Lord Yahweh has indignation forever. What did Isaiah say here? What did it say here in Isaiah? For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, which is the Greek word for Edom, and upon the people of my curse to judgment. These are the people of the Lord's curse to judgment, the Edomites. Edom is like the Latin word, the English word for Idumea. So it's not going to end well for these devils, but it's beautiful. They really thought, these Russians, right? was running short on their hypersonic missiles, but they weren't. They were not running short at all. All praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. All praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So we're just going to keep watching that, boy. Keep our eye on that. Because, like I said, boy, these are the different pieces on the puzzle, on the chessboard, on the Most High's chessboard. And we're seeing them closer and closer and closer. But as we said, we know Revelations 13 and 16 has to be in play before they engage in a nuclear exchange. Just so you understand. Because right now they're fighting a proxy war. But before they engage in nuclear exchange, they have to, the mark of the beast, the microchip, has to be in play. And as you can all see, all roads are leading to the microchip with the CBDCs that are in place. So, like I said, boy, they can't hide. They can't hide their thing no more. Not no more. So on that note, I pray you were edified. I just really wanted to bring that out today. I pray you were edified by today's edification. Russia destroys NATO bunker. Mainstream media zip tight. They're zip tight. Silenced about what's going on. Silence. So we'll see if this will start filtering through the mainstream media over the next week or so. We'll see what's going to happen with this news. So Kal Halal Yahweh, B'Hasham Yahushai, B'Hasham Rakah Kodash, double honors to the apostles, to the elders of Great Millstone, our teachers, and Shalom to the hopeful elect of the house of Israel. As I always say, keep praying, keep safe, and hold on to this truth. Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises, family.